Hey everybody, it's Jordan Brown here, bringing you another fun and affordable MTG deck tech for tiny leaders. Today we're going to be looking at Hapatra, Vizier of Poisons. She is a 2/2 creature for black and green who reads, whenever Hapatra, Vizier of Poisons deals combat damage to a player, you may put a -1/-1 counter on target creature. And whenever you put one or more -1/-1 counters on a creature, create a 1/1 green snake creature token with Death Touch. So as you're going to see, a lot of our cards put -1/-1 counters on stuff so we can get those tokens and swing in for damage. So first up on the list, we have Festering Mummy, a 1/1 for black that dies and lets us put a -1/-1 counter on target creature. It's very good. Lets us trade it in for a snake whenever it dies. We also have Channeler Initiate, who enters the battlefield with 3 plus -1/-1 counters on target creature we control. Then we can tap her and remove a -1/-1 counter from Channeler Initiate to add 1 mana of any color to our mana pool. Exemplar of Strength costs 1 and a green for a 4/4. When he enters the battlefield, we get to put 3 -1/-1 counters on target creature you control, with the idea being to put it on him. However, whenever Exemplar of Strength attacks, we can remove a -1/-1 counter from it. And if we do, we gain 1 life. Now, with these two cards, obviously, they have abilities that want the counters we put on them, so they can then kind of be removed. There are a lot of creatures that come in very powerful to start with, and let us put -1/-1 counters on them, as you'll see. In my opinion, unless it's a card like Exemplar of Strength and Channeler Initiate, we're going to want to put those counters on a snake because it will kill the snake, but if Hapatra's out, we'll immediately get another snake and we'll have a high power creature for a lower cost. And of course, here we have Amit Eternal, which is 2 and a black for a 5/5 with Afflict 3, which reads, whenever this creature becomes blocked, defending player loses 3 life, which is not the same as dealing damage. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, put a -1/-1 counter on Amit Eternal, and whenever Amit Eternal deals combat damage to a player, remove all -1/-1 counters from it. As you're going to see with the rest of these creatures, all of their remainder are 3 CMC or higher. Partially this is because a lot of the creatures that put -1/-1 counters on stuff that have powerful effects are at this CMC. It's as high as we can go in tiny leaders. But also because on turn 2, we want to be jamming Hapatra out there for 2 mana, 1 black and 1 green, because she's going to be the engine that's going to keep this deck going. So, we have Baleful Amit, who has Lifelink and has a 4/3 for 2 and a black, that when he enters the battlefield, we put a -1/-1 counter on target creature we control. Again, we can put it on a token, it'll kill the token, we'll get a 4/3 with Lifelink for 3 mana, and we'll get another token. Next up, we have Banewhip Punisher, who is a 2/2 for 2 and a black at reads. When Banewhip Punisher enters the battlefield, you may put a -1/-1 counter on target creature. Then you can pay a black and sacrifice Banewhip Punisher to destroy target creature that has a -1/-1 counter on it. Note that we can put this counter on any creature that we can target, obviously. So that means that we don't have to put it on our own. We can instead put it on an opponent's creature, so we still get that token without having to kill any of our own stuff. So next we've got some Wither creatures coming up. We got Cinderbones, 2 and a black with Wither. That is a 1/1. Wither is an effect that this creature deals damage to creatures in the form of -1/-1 counters. Cinderbones is only a 1/1 for 3, but we can pay 2 mana to regenerate it. So that means once it's out, we can have it as a blocker or as an attacker, and if it would be killed, we can instead regenerate it, so it'll still get in that Wither on the creature, and we'll get a token. Corrosive Mentor makes all of our black creatures have Wither. He's 2 black for a 1/3. That includes he will have Wither. He'll give all of our other creatures Wither. That does not affect our tokens, but that's pretty good. So now we've got some others. Defiant Greatmaw. When it enters the battlefield, we get to put 2 -1/-1 counters on a creature we control. Again, aim for those tokens when possible. Whenever you put 1 or more -1/-1 counters on Defiant Greatmaw, remove a -1/-1 counter from another target creature you control. Necroskitter is 1 and 2 black for a 1/4 with Wither. Whenever a creature an opponent controls with a -1/-1 counter on it dies, you may return that card to the battlefield under your control. This is pretty powerful. It's going to let us put counters on our opponent's creatures with Hapatra or other abilities, and then when they die, we just get them. Obelisk Spider is 1 black and green for a 1/4 with reach. When it deals combat damage to a creature, put a -1/-1 counter on that creature. Whenever you put 1 or more -1/-1 counters on a creature, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. That's going to be another great engine to get out here and have sitting as we put counters on our own creatures or our opponent's creatures, and we're going to rack up life as our opponent slowly loses life, and also as we're pinging them with our tokens that we're creating. Ornery Kudu is a 3/4 for 3 that just puts a -1/-1 counter on a creature we control. Again, could be on itself, but we could also get that 3/4 for only 3 mana by putting it on a token, which will replenish itself so long as Hapatra's in play. And then, of course, our last 2 creatures in the deck are Plague Belcher and Renclaw Trow. Plague Belcher reads 2 and a black, has Menace, it is a 5/4, and when it enters the battlefield, put 2 -1/-1 counters on target creature you control. And then whenever another zombie you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life. The zombie effect's not going to be particularly relevant here, but the -1/-1 counters, again, that's just part of our engine. Getting a 5/4 with Menace is going to be very strong. Renclaw Trow is 2 and either a black or a green for a 2/2 that has Wither and Persist. So that means whenever it deals damage to creatures, it puts -1/-1 counters on them instead. And if it dies with no -1/-1 counters on it, it comes back with a -1/-1 counter on it, which means it'll come back as a 1/1, and if Hapatra is in play, we'll also get a snake, and that means it'll combo well with the Great Mod that we just looked at. Now we're going to go ahead and take a look at our spells. First up, we have Altar's Reap for 1 and a black. As an additional cost to cast Altar's Reap, sacrifice a creature. That lets us draw 2 cards. That's going to be important to keep our hand full so we can keep dropping our cards that are going to power our -1/-1 counters engine. Costly Plunder over here is basically an additional copy of Altar's Reap. It hits the same sacrifice targets, but it can also hit artifacts to draw 2 cards. We're not going to be producing many artifacts that we want to use for that effect, so primarily it's just going to be another Altar's Reap. Black Sun's Zenith is a very cool board wipe, in my opinion. It lets us put X -1/-1 counters on each creature for X and black. Then we shuffle it back into its owner's library. That means that we can hit whatever X is for the highest power among all creatures, and as long as Hapatra's out, it'll kill all those creatures, and for each creature that gets a -1/-1 counter on it, no matter how many, we're going to get snakes. So that means we're going to get 1 snake for every creature we kill this way. We have Damnable Pact for 2 black and X. Target player draws X cards and loses X life. This is just, we're going to need some card draw in there. Dissenter's Deliverance is 1 and a green to destroy target artifact, and we can cycle it for green. I feel like it's going to be primarily used for its cycling, but there are going to be some artifacts we may want to deal with in other people's decks. We also have Rampant Growth for 1 and a green. Lets us go and get a basic land onto the battlefield tapped. Get some good ramp in there, make sure we hit all of our colors. Grim Affliction is 2 and a black to put a -1/-1 counter on target creature, then Proliferate. That'll work really well with any opponent's creatures or some of our creatures that we want to just bump up the counters on in order to get snakes. Lethal Sting, 2 and a black. As an additional cost to cast Lethal Sting, put a -1/-1 counter on a creature you control. Again, putting it on our snakes is going to be good. Then destroy target creature. Solid removal. Considering we have a -1/-1 engine, it's going to be 3 mana to destroy a creature and get another snake. And of course we have Driven to Despair. Until end of which Driven reads 1 and a green. Until end of turn, creatures you control gain trample, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. Then Despair is the aftermath side, which means we can only cast it from our graveyard. 1 in a black, until end of turn, creatures you control gain menace, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, that player discards a card. So being able to pay 4 mana to cast both of those sides, main phase 1, is going to be really good if we just have a lot of tokens out. It's going to give us some card draw, and it's going to remove cards from our opponent's hand. Of course, we have just a couple of artifacts to go along with this. Alchemist Vial for 2 mana. When it enters, we draw a card, so primarily it's a cantrip. Then we can pay 1, tap it, and sacrifice it to make the target creature that can't attack or block this turn. This is going to let Hapatra or our other creatures through, or on the off chance, we can sack it to Costly Plunder for that card draw. Blight Sickle is 2 mana with Equip 2. Equipped creature gets +1/+0 and has Wither, again for putting on more -1/-1 counters. And then we have Contagion Clasp, which is 2 mana. When it enters, we put a -1/-1 counter on target creature. Again, that could be on an opponent's creature rather than one of our own. And at any time, we can pay 4 mana and tap it to proliferate, which, as we saw before, lets us put a counter of any type on any permanents, an additional one on there. I'm just going to follow this up with our enchantments. Bonds of Mortality, 1 in a green. When it enters, draw a card. So again, it cantrips solid. Then it lets us interact with our opponent's hexproof creatures. Indestructible is not going to be a huge worry for us, considering we have so many -1/-1 counters, which kill creatures on a state-based level. But we can pay green to interact with our opponent's hexproof creatures in addition to the cantrip. We also have Fevered Convulsions, which is 2 black, which lets us at any time pay 4 mana to put a -1/-1 counter on target creature. It's not the most cost-efficient effect, but it lets us repeat it if we run out of cards. Blowfly Infestation is one of the more expensive cards in the deck. It's 2 in a black, and whenever a creature is put into a graveyard from play, if it had a -1/-1 counter on it, put a -1/-1 counter on target creature. That's going to just let us keep making snakes. We're going to get to keep putting these on our opponent's creatures. Cartouche of Ambition is 2 in a black. Enchant target creature you control. When it enters the battlefield, put a -1/-1 counter on target creature. Great, again, powers Hapatra. Then the enchanted creature gets +1/+1 and has lifelink. And of course, Nest of Scarabs is going to be kind of an additional Hapatra for 2 in a black. Whenever you put 1 or more -1/-1 counters on a creature, put that many 1/1 black insect creature tokens into play. Or sorry, create is the new word for that. It's basically whenever we put -1/-1 counters on stuff, we get that many scarabs. So it's almost better than Hapatra's token creation effect, but it's on an enchantment. Having them both out, we're just going to get a ton of tokens to be able to swing in. Now we're going to look at our lands. Again, these are highly upgradable, probably going to be the most expensive part of the deck if you do upgrade. For this, I've chosen a couple of less expensive but really useful ones. We've got Golgari Guildgate, enters tapped, but it lets us get both colors of mana. Golgari Rot Farm, we do have to return a land to our hand, but again, we can use this to summon Hapatra anytime. It just creates 2 mana in 1 of each color. Then we have Grasping Dunes, which creates 1 colorless mana, or we can pay 1, tap it, and sacrifice it to put a -1/-1 counter on target creature. If we just have too much mana and we just want to get this out there and change it into a -1/-1 counter. It's pretty inexpensive. It only costs our land drop. Late game, that's not going to be a worry. Of course, we have Jungle Hollow, which gives us a life when it enters and taps for a black and a green, and of course enters tapped. Temple of Malady also enters tapped and taps for a black and a green, but it does let us scry. Then, of course, we're going to round out the deck with 6 forests and 7 swamps. Because we have so many black cards, I went on a little bit heavier on the swamp side, but I did not want to cut too many forests because we do need that green to get Hapatra out and several of our other cards. So here you have the link to find this deck on MTG Goldfish. Again, Hapatra is our commander. And the price of the deck, you can get it for $23.54 through TCG Players Direct Service or $23.25 through their verified sellers. I like this deck a lot. I think it's very fun, very flavorful, very affordable. If you already have more expensive upgrades or want to put some more money into it, there are absolutely a couple more upgrades you can make, like in the land base. There's a couple of more expensive creatures that could have been put in. But here we want to make sure the deck's affordable, Tiny Leaders is really easy to be affordable without going super budget. So I hope you have enjoyed and that you have a nice day.